Hello, my name is Rosie Prohías Driscoll. I want to thank Indran this morning for inviting me to share a few of my poems from my first full-length collection, Poised for Flight. Was published about 6 months ago with Finishing Line Press. I'm very excited. The book is an excavation of my Cuban family roots that were uprooted and then replanted here in the United States, and the twin experiences of grief and grace that came from that exile experience. There are several threads that are woven through the collection, and one of those threads is simply the celebration of the extraordinary women who raised me and my brothers. So this first poem recalls my tia abuela. Her name was Lula, but we called her Nana. And this is a recollection of her apprenticing my mother in the art of healing. It's called Rescue Operations. The air in La Casa del Bitmor is thick with the song of los tomeguines, except when the tropical storms roll through and leave the backyard trees hushed and heavy with rain. When El Diluvio subsides, Lula hurries downstairs and invites Alicia out to search for fallen nidos, instructing her budding apprentice to listen for the soft cries of los pichoncitos, scan the foliage for flashes of tiny yellow tail feathers, approach slowly to scoop them up in tender hands, and lay them suavecito in shoeboxes lined with the newspapers Lula collects for her rescue operations. Alicia delights in learning to feed los pichoncitos 3 times a day with toothpicks dipped in cornmeal. At night, Lula keeps the shoeboxes by her bed, lulled to sleep by satisfied chirping, until los tomeguines grow wings deep green and strong enough to be released from her perch in el patio, where she beckons Alicia to enter and make a nest of interlocked fingers from which each pajarito flies to rejoin the throng, adding their notes to birdsong rising. So this second poem is for my grandmother's other sister, my other tia abuela who raised us. Her name was Maria del Socorro. We called her Coco. If Nana was the healer in our lives, then Coco was the storyteller. This poem is called Palabras for Coco. There are days when I wake awash in your exuberant love, springing from the pores of your pale skin, peppered with the freckles you once tried to remove with sewing pins, chasing an ephemeral vision of beauty with your characteristic folly, longing for the winged love that landed briefly with brilliant plumes, then flew, leaving you inocente and hollow with yearning. I wonder if you cried in the night for socorro, lamenting the bitter irony of your name, or if you eased into your role as favorite tia, unleashing oceanic love upon the fruits of your sister's womb, each of your desiccated ovum resurrected as palabra, pulsating in the tents you erected for us with bed sheets borrowed from Abuela Aida in La Casa de la 12 Avenida, where you beckoned us to enter and listen to word threads unraveling, until we opened our child eyes in the city of 100 fires, agape at the sight of Abuelo Joaquin's monkeys, waking you and your sibling brood, nipping at bare toes, peeking from layers of mosquito net and linen. These, your children, leaping and swinging into eternity. Another thread that runs through the book is the pain of family division and separation, particularly as my father came to this country alone, and he left his most of his family behind. They remained in Cuba. So this poem is for my cousin Yo-Yo, who grew up in Havana while I grew up in Miami. It's called Primo. Me da gracia when you explain words and phrases to me, your gringa cousin, as if 50 years and 90 miles could dilute my mother's milk. As if vieja, an affectionate term you say referring to one's mother, could taste any different on my tongue than yours, whether released with relish into Miami or Havana salt air. And so I laugh when you introduce carajo. Definition: an indiscreet term signifying hell or a faraway place. Origin: the lookout or highest point on ancient ships where sailors were sent as punishment for their transgressions. But after a while, la gracia no me da gracia. The hand of grace raised in blessing over our heads turns menacing. The sugar on my tongue drowns in bile and rage at the distance that makes you think you must translate it all. Así es, you stand perched, parched in your carajo. I stand in mine, each squinting blindly at a blank horizon. So this next poem reflects on legacy and the fear of what may or may not be passed on to the next generation. It's called Inheritance. Abuela Aida was obsessed with whether her daughters would sprout las orejas de torreja de Abuelo César y José Basilio, those ears that induced Sisa to tie a blue ribbon around Tío Raúl's infant head, even if people might think he was a girl, to prevent them from smothering him in his sleep. She gave thanks to God when Mami and Mina each emerged from the womb with ears well proportioned for wearing a proper moño, and again years later when we, her nietos, also managed to escape the elephantine curse. So when our first daughter is born, the women of the family ceremoniously swoop down to dissect her baby body. Mami proclaims que la niña tiene las sortijitas pegadas a la cabeza like my father, though the strawberry blonde hue of her ringlets belongs to Abuela Rosina. Most importantly, her ears are perfect tiny caracoles de nácar. Lying in her Moisés, la niña gazes at her father, not yet able to recognize the amused smile taking shape as he strokes the reddish stubble of his beard, while I fix my eyes on hers, wanting to believe it's true, that a little piece of ourselves can live in the precise curve of a fingernail bed or in the pupil of the bluest eye. And finally, the last poem I will read, I will end where I always begin, my mother. This poem is called Cocina Cafe. It is 4 p.m. and Mami prepares the afternoon ritual. She reaches for the cuchara that has taken up residence in the red and yellow Bustelo can and scoops the warm, dark grounds. She grasps the rubber-tipped cucharita living with its kin in the top drawer de la cocina. Utensils, like people, need a home. Todo tiene su lugar. And packs the granules tightly into the upper chamber of la cafetera. She turns on the flame. Standing sentinel, she awaits the alchemy, scrutinizing, lest the liquid overflow the spout or explode. Sliding hot metal to cool coil, she pours evenly into mismatched cups and passes each one, a poem, to eager hands that receive the gift with gracias, grace. So thank you very much. Again, thank you, Indran, for inviting me to the Poetry Channel. And thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed the poems. And please consider buying a copy of Poised for Flight. It's available on finishinglinepress.com as well as on Amazon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.